extreme radio for extreme times. This is A View from Space with the Spaceman. AM 640. Toronto Radio.
Hello and welcome into A View from Space. I want to welcome you in if you're listening on AM 640, Toronto.com. Checking out the live audio streaming on your machine at home, or your Mac or your PC, whatever you're on. Also, I want to welcome you in if you're listening on Star Choice, channel 865. Also on Rogers Cable at 96.6. And coming soon to ExpressView is A View from Space. I'll let you know what channel when it's hooked up. Well, a lot of talk in my inbox, on my email, has been about Super Bowl XL. And of course, they're talking about a possible terrorist attack. February 3rd, which was yesterday, actually the day before yesterday, now that we're into Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday, the Patriot Act was due to expire. It's being extended until March 10th. This just been done. The Rolling Stones are playing the halftime show. The tour they're coming off of, or interrupting, to play the halftime show, and 3 songs only, is called A Bigger Bang. With the Patriot Act still in limbo, Iran and their nuclear crisis looming, because they have now been referred to the United Nations Security Council. And this I've mentioned last summer that it was coming. Well, here we are now. I could conceive of an attack, a bigger bang attack on the Super Bowl, simply because that would give them the immediate access to Iran militarily and the short, fast cut way by just simply connecting the disaster to Iran. But somehow, I don't think that's going to happen. I think this has a longer fuse. I don't know how long, but I would imagine it's written in the stars, because that's what the Illuminati goes by. Gus wrote an incredible email that I want to read excerpts from. Emails are accepted, by the way, at space at 640toronto.com. Also at Spaceman at 640toronto.com. The movie, Gus points out, The Sum of All Fears, is a nuclear explosion going off in Baltimore at the Super Bowl game. Detroit has the largest population, Islamic population. Super Bowl security company of 25 years has been replaced for the very first time for Super Bowl XL with federal agencies. Possible cover-up after the fact being put in place. There are over 10,000 security bodyguards in Detroit for the event. Our government here in Canada was put on alert. Detroit is a very dependent city on welfare assistance. Just as the Egyptian ferry disaster, all poor people who were sacrificed on that. And yes, it was not an accident. They were sacrificed. Al-Salam means spirit of peace. There will be no peace, was the answer. Detroit newspapers mentioning D-Day coming up. Newspapers in the States are printing ads with strange messages. USA Today, February 3rd edition, had AT&T ad on pages 6A and 7A. Art of War quotation. Other quotations were, "Are we there yet?" And another one, "Let's watch from Hawaii." Some people think the Super Bowl halftime show will be interrupted by a nuke in a suitcase explosion. I'm not so sure, because I can't see the Illuminati wasting black nobility's favorite rock band, the Rolling Stones. But I have to agree with you that a bigger bang is very intriguing. This is A View from Space on AM 640 Toronto Radio. Speaking of emails, one more quick email. Hello, sir. I've been aware of the New World Order's plans for a couple of years and came across MP3s of your show a few months ago. So far, out of all the folks exposing the New World Order, including Alex Jones, Jack Blood, etc., you are probably the most honest. I've just stopped listening to Alex Jones after a year because I believe he is misleading people by constantly telling his listeners that we can beat the system, which is a load of crap. I personally think he does this to stop himself from losing listeners, because after all, what would be the point in listening to him if there's nothing you can do about it? He's got a lot of films and other gear to shift and, obviously, some money to make. Anyway, just to let you know that I'll be doing my best to tune you in every one of your shows from now on, but that may be too difficult as I'm on the other side of the world, and by the time your show comes on, it'll be pretty late here, and I'm staying up to listen. Would put me late for work in the morning. Can you please tell me if your shows are archived at all? There's a bunch of your shows floating around on the net in MP3 format, but I would like more. Much respect. Lee, Wales, the UK. Well, I've had so many emails from people asking me about archived shows, and I just don't have that capability as yet. I've been pursuing it and have had no answer. So I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. It's A View from Space on AM 640 Toronto Radio. Coming back with the Bush connections to Iran.
ancient mystery religions, numerology, the Holy Grail decoded, and he goes deeper than a black hole in today's headlines. This is A View from Space with the Spaceman. AM 640, Toronto Radio.
I'm the guy that calls space on AM 640, Toronto Radio. This is A View from Space. I will say one more thing about the Super Bowl. Some people say the fix is in for the Pittsburgh Steelers to win. It's the old economy versus the new economy. You realize that, huh? Seattle, the new economy, and Pittsburgh, the old economy. And Seattle is owned by the Nordstroms. Northern Europe. Sweden, to be exact. Pretty much ties in with what I'm talking about tonight for the next hour and 40 minutes. The super race. The master race. That originally came from the Nordic countries. So will that show up in the Super Bowl? Super Bowl XL? Because they're not calling it Super Bowl 40. And 4, the number 4, by the way, is the number for the foundation. Like when you build a building. The Freemasons are the builders of the world. When you build a building, you put a foundation down, and there are 4 sides. And you build on that 4-sided foundation. We'll see. I won't actually be watching the Super Bowl to see who wins. I'll be watching to see if there is an attack. And if the cameras keep rolling to capture every second of it so that they might replay it over and over and over again, just like they did with 9/11. Somehow, miraculously, they had all the footage, including the impact of both airplanes. I hope you listen to A View from Space on AM 640 Toronto Radio when I covered the Nader brothers and how it was done. But on to Iran. Off the back burner, onto the front burner. Donnie Rumsfeld, the youngest Secretary of Defense in history over in Europe today, selling the war. John McCain, possible front runner for the next President of the United States of America, saying, I won't rule out military action, but there's many more steps to go before we get there. In other words, they're beating the war drums. And there is a connection with the Bushes. Back to Iran. And with the Nazis. The Bush family and the Rockefellers and others funded the rise of the Nazis. What were the Nazis really about? The creation of a Superman, a master race. What's the motto of Rockefeller University? A better super race. This also would explain the angel of death, Joseph Mengele, his experiments and his atrocities that still go on today. During the time of the Crusades, an evil mystical group that made its fortune through murder and blackmail came out of the Islamic world. And I mean the Islamic-controlled part of the world. Islam is not to blame. There is a group called the Illuminati that have control of the highest echelons of Islam, of Christianity, of Judaism, and are pitting them against one another. This mystical group was known as the Order of the Assassins. It was ruled by a Grand Master, had 9 levels of initiation, and basically was the first known systemic movement to create mind-controlled assassins who were promised a heavenly paradise if they managed to murder a given leader or an important person. The territory of this group literally stranded the 33rd degree parallel from Baghdad to Afghanistan, with a center point in northern Iran. The cult of the assassins was almost wiped out by the Mongols, but a part of them survived until today, and they're led by their hereditary leader, the Aga Khan. The modern Aga Khan, head of the Ismailis, is a direct descendant of the Old Man of the Mountains, the leader of the assassins of the ancient days. The Templars and the assassins were the left-handed path. The left-handed path, as you know, is the path of black magic. The Aga Khan is involved with the UN, and his nobility is recognized by Queen Elizabeth II. He was born on December 13th, the same date that they executed Tookie Williams, the guy that started the gangs, the Bloods and the Crips. He was executed by son of a Nazi. Arnold Schwarzenegger was the governor, signed the death warrant. His dad, Schwarzenegger's dad, married the ex-wife of a German nobleman, Thyssen, that was a partner with Prescott Bush and George Herbert Walker in the funding of the Hitler Project. The Aga Khan attended Phillips Academy, Andover. So did George W. Bush, who was just a few years ahead of Scooter Libby, the guy that's now indicted for the oil for food scam. Mark Rich also went to the school. He's part of it. He was pardoned by Bill Clinton. The Aga Khan has ties to a Swiss foundation with Neil Bush and Pope Benedict before he became Pope. Talk about classmates at Yale. So the suicide bombers are run by the Aga Khan, who is also a high-ranking official in the UN. More in a moment on AM 640 Toronto Radio. This is A View from Space.
Snowmobilers. The opinions expressed on this show do not necessarily reflect those of AM 640 Toronto Radio.
I'm the Spaceman. This is View from Space on AM 640 Toronto Radio. I was just talking about the cult of assassins. The modern Aga Khan, head of the Ismailis, is a direct descendant of the Old Man of the Mountains, the leader of those assassins. He is their head man even today. Aga Khan was once a high-ranking official in the UN. Well, so was George W.'s dad. He was the U.S. ambassador to the UN from 71 to 73. He was also the head of the CIA, just a scant 3 years before the Iran-Contra conspiracy. when George Herbert Walker, George W.'s dad, was on the same ticket as Ronald Reagan as his vice president, running against Jimmy Carter. I'll cover a little more of that and the connections to the Iranian powers deeper into the show. This Ismaili sect I'm talking about now, as these assassins are now called, cooperate with the British and U.S. intelligence agencies. A lot like they cooperated with the Knights Templar in the past. And also, they have a heavy involvement with the CIA and British intelligence in Afghanistan with the heroin that travels to Europe. Afghanistan produces more heroin than it ever has now. So I'm thinking what we are involved with here is hereditary descent of the assassins and members of the Society of Skull and Bones. Since the Illuminati developed from the Knights Templar, and that Skull and Bones is a descendant organization, then we would be talking about ties between the Bush family, their organizations they belong to, and the Iranian organizations and the Ismaili sect that have been around for nearly 800 years. How about that for a strong business relationship? The ties between the Ayatollahs of Iran and the Bush dynasty are also there. That's coming up on AM 640 Toronto Radio, deeper into A View from Space. The Black Turbans and the Skull and Bones owe each other for their mutual rise to power. An incredible change of major proportions has swept through Iran with very little notice. The clerical regime that was running it's no longer clerical. Mahmoud Ahmadinejad is a secular leader. This sounds like a CIA plot, doesn't it? A CIA setup. Generation after generation, the Bush family and the Iranian hierarchy have been doing business together 3 generations now. Somehow, it favors the interests of hidden, and it's sinister. Because they're playing with the nuclear crisis. Mahmoud Ahmadinejad and his group have a conviction that chaos has to be created in order to hasten the coming of the Mahdi, a form of end times for Islam, a Messiah-like figure coming on the scene. Sounds to me like Freemasonry, and he belongs. This is very Hegelian. And this is the operating philosophy behind Nazism and fascism. It seems logical to me that this group that operates in the shadow is likely an Illuminati-based organization pushing the drive to a nuclear confrontation that'll lead to chaos and then a new world order with the human sacrifice of, what, tens of millions of deaths on the 33rd degree parallel. This organization's got Nazi written all over it. The CIA is a Nazi-created or influenced agency. And the guys controlling Iran now are too. Their job is to create a Hegelian-type Ordo ab Chao. The Illuminati's motto, order out of chaos. Did you know Iran executes the second largest number of people in the world after China? It's true. And the demons that constantly lust for blood, according to the Aztecs, direct their favors with the group that can provide, should we say, better services. Doesn't matter who it is, as long as you kill a lot. The Soviet Union was at its peak of power when it entered Afghanistan on the 33rd degree parallel and killed nearly 2 million people. See, sun worship requires blood sacrifice. Mithraism was an ancient mystery religion. From the 1st century BC to the 5th century AD, it was based on worship of the god Mithras, and was taken from the Persian and Indic god Mithra, and